Welcome to English Meow. Do you want to speak English? Do you want to understand people when they speak English? Do you want to feel good when you talk to someone in English? In this video, I'll tell you how to quickly improve my English proficiency after I arrive in New York. It is simple. It is possible, and it is fun. Stay with me. Let us start. Last year, I had the amazing opportunity to visit New York City. It was my first time traveling to the United States, and I was both excited and nervous. I had always dreamed of seeing the famous landmarks like the Statue of Liberty, Times Square, and Central Park. But more than that, I wanted to improve my English. I knew that being in an English-speaking environment would help me learn faster and become more confident in speaking. When I arrived in New York, the first thing I noticed was how busy the city was. There were people everywhere, walking quickly, talking to each other, and rushing to their destinations. It felt like the city never stopped moving. I was a bit overwhelmed at first because I was used to a quieter and slower pace of life. But I knew that if I wanted to learn English, I had to get out of my comfort zone and embrace the new environment. One of the first things I did was practice speaking English with the people I met. I started by asking for directions, ordering food at restaurants, and making small talk with strangers. At first, it was difficult because I didn't always understand everything, and sometimes I made mistakes. But every time I spoke, I learned something new. I started to understand how people spoke quickly and used different phrases that I didn't learn in school. I realized that real conversations were very different from the English lessons I had back home. In New York, I was surrounded by English every day. I would listen to people talking on the subway, watch English TV shows, and read English signs everywhere I went. It was an amazing experience because I could hear English being used in so many different ways. For example, at a coffee shop, I overheard a conversation between two people about their weekend plans. They spoke so quickly, but I could catch a few words like movie and restaurant. It was exciting to hear real-life English, and it motivated me to keep practicing. I also visited many famous places, which helped me learn new vocabulary. For example, I went to Central Park and I learned words like lake, bridge, and picnic. In Times Square, I saw many advertisements and signs with English words like sale, tickets, and show. Every time I visited a new place, I would try to learn a few words related to it. This way, I could use the new words in my conversations and remember them better. One day, I decided to join a free English-speaking group in a library. It was a great opportunity to practice speaking with other learners and native speakers. I was nervous at first, but everyone was very friendly and encouraging. We practiced speaking about different topics like hobbies, travel, and food. It felt good to speak in a group because I could learn from others and share my own experiences. Even though I made some mistakes, the other learners and the teacher helped me. I felt more confident every time I left the group. As I spent more time in New York, I began to realize how much my listening skills were improving. At first, I had trouble understanding the fast-paced English that people spoke, especially on the streets or in busy places. It was difficult to catch all the words, and sometimes I would miss important parts of the conversation. But as I kept listening every day, whether it was on the subway, in stores, or at cafes, my brain started to get used to the speed and rhythm of the language. One day, I was on the subway, and a man next to me was talking to his friend about the weather. He said, "It's going to rain later. Better bring an umbrella." At first, I didn't understand the phrase, "better bring an umbrella," but I recognized the word rain and the context. I thought about it for a second and realized that he was suggesting to his friend to take an umbrella because it was going to rain. That small moment of understanding made me feel proud of myself. I was learning to understand English in real situations, not just in textbooks. Another time, I was at a park and I overheard a group of tourists asking a local for directions. The man gave them directions by saying, "Go straight, take a left at the corner, and you'll see the museum." I immediately recognized the phrase, "take a left," and understood what he meant. It was simple, but it made me realize how much I was picking up from everyday conversations. I realized that learning English wasn't just about studying vocabulary or grammar. It was about listening, practicing, and getting used to the way people speak in real life. The more I listened, the more I started to feel comfortable with different accents and ways of speaking. In New York, there are many different accents because people come from all over the world. I met people from different countries, and each one spoke English in their own way. Some spoke more slowly, while others spoke very quickly. Some used formal language, while others used informal slang. At first, I found it hard to understand some of the accents, but as I kept practicing, I began to get used to them. I realized that it was important to be open to different ways of speaking and not to worry too much about perfect understanding. I also realized that watching movies and TV shows in English helped me learn a lot. I started watching movies in English with subtitles so I could see the words while hearing them. It helped me understand the pronunciation of new words and phrases. Sometimes I would watch the same scene multiple times to catch words I missed. I also started watching TV shows that were popular in the US, like Friends and The Office. These shows used everyday language, and I learned a lot about American culture as well. One of the best things about New York was the chance to speak with native English speakers. At first, I was afraid to talk because I worried I might make mistakes, but I soon realized that most people were very friendly and patient. I started practicing my speaking skills whenever I could. For example, when I went to a coffee shop, I would order my drink in English and try to have a short conversation with the barista. Even if I made mistakes, the staff always smiled and helped me. It was a great way to practice, and I felt more confident each time I spoke. In one coffee shop, I met a woman who was also learning English. She had been living in New York for a few months and was practicing speaking with everyone she met. We talked about our experiences in the city, and she shared tips for learning English. She told me that one of the best ways to improve speaking was to find a language partner, someone to practice with regularly. She and I agreed to meet up every week to speak in English. This was a wonderful idea because it gave me a chance to practice regularly in a safe and friendly environment. I started to look forward to our meetings, and we would talk about everything from our favorite foods to the weather. We also decided to help each other with new vocabulary. After each conversation, we would share any new words or phrases we had learned and practice them together. Sometimes, we would even use the words in sentences to make sure we understood how to use them properly. This helped me remember new words and use them in my daily conversations. By having a language partner, I was able to practice speaking more often, which was exactly what I needed to improve my skills. Another important aspect of my experience in New York was interacting with people from different cultures. English was the common language, but many people spoke English with accents from their countries. For example, I met a man from Brazil who spoke English with a strong Brazilian accent and a woman from China who had a Chinese accent. Despite their different accents, we could all understand each other. It was interesting to see how people from different parts of the world used English, and it reminded me that English is a global language spoken by people from many different backgrounds. I also noticed that many people in New York used slang and informal expressions. At first, I didn't understand some of the phrases they used, like, "What's up?" or "That's cool." But as I heard these expressions more often, I started to understand their meanings. I even began to use some of these phrases myself, which made my English sound more natural. Slang is an important part of spoken English, and I realized that learning these informal expressions made my language more colorful and real. As I spent more time in New York, I started to feel more comfortable using English in different situations. I had always struggled with speaking in public or with strangers, but being in New York helped me overcome that fear. I learned that the more I spoke, the easier it became. I began to use English in many different places, whether at a store, in a restaurant, or even on the street. Every day presented new opportunities to practice. One day, I went to a local market to buy some fruits and vegetables. The vendor was very friendly, and we began to talk about the different types of fruits available. I had never heard of some of the names before, but the vendor explained them to me in simple English. I learned new words like kiwi, avocado, and dragon fruit, and I also learned how to ask for the price and how to say thank you in different ways. These small conversations made me feel proud because I was able to communicate with someone in English and understand what they were saying. In addition to learning vocabulary, I also started to improve my ability to understand different accents. New York is a city where people from all over the world come to live, and this diversity is reflected in the way people speak English. Some people have strong accents, while others speak more clearly. In the beginning, it was difficult to understand certain accents, but over time, I became better at recognizing them. I learned to listen carefully, and soon I could understand people from different parts of the world without much trouble. One experience that helped me improve my listening skills was visiting a museum. I went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and while I was there, I listened to a tour guide speaking about the exhibits. The guide spoke slowly and clearly, and it was easy to follow along with the information. I made it a point to visit the museum more often, not just to enjoy the art, but also to practice my listening skills. Listening to a guide explain things in English helped me pick up new vocabulary and expressions that I could use later in conversations. I also noticed that my reading skills were improving. At first, I struggled to read signs, menus, and labels, but after a few weeks, I found that I could read things more easily. When I went to a restaurant, I could understand the menu without having to ask for help. I could read street signs and subway maps without feeling lost. The more I read in English, the more confident I became. It was exciting to see how much progress I was making in such a short time. One of the most exciting things I learned while in New York was how to use English to connect with people from different cultures. In such a multicultural city, it wasn't uncommon to meet someone who didn't speak perfect English. However, the important thing was that we could still communicate, share stories, and learn from each other. This made me realize that speaking a language isn't just about getting everything perfect. It's about connecting with others. I had a conversation with a man from Mexico one day, and while his English wasn't perfect, I was able to understand him. He told me about his life in New York and how he had learned English through practice, just like me. He explained that when he first arrived, he felt very shy and struggled to communicate. But over time, he had made many friends who helped him practice. This inspired me to keep practicing, even when I made mistakes. We both agreed that making mistakes is just part of the process, and the important thing is to keep going. I also had the chance to meet people from other countries, including India, Russia, and the Philippines. Everyone had their own unique story about how they had learned English, and we all had different challenges. Some people had learned English in school, while others had learned through work or travel. I began to understand that everyone's journey to learning English is different, but we all shared a common goal: to be able to communicate and understand each other. Talking to people from different countries also helped me learn about the different ways English is spoken. For example, I learned that in British English, people might say queue instead of line, and in American English, we might use elevator, while others use lift. These small differences made me realize how rich and diverse the English language is, and how much I still have to learn. However, it also made me more open to accepting the variety of English spoken around the world. One day, I had a conversation with a group of students who were also learning English. They were from different parts of the world, and we talked about our cultures and traditions. It was amazing how we could share so many ideas and experiences despite not speaking the same first language. We used English to communicate, and in doing so, we not only learned the language but also learned more about each other. This experience helped me see that English is not just a language. It's a bridge that connects people from all walks of life. The more I practiced English, the more I realized how important it was to keep an open mind. Learning a language is not just about understanding words, it's about understanding the people who speak it. It's about connecting with others, sharing experiences, and learning from different perspectives. My time in New York showed me that learning English is a journey, and it's a journey that will never truly end. As my time in New York came to an end, I reflected on everything I had learned. I realized that my experience in the city had changed me in many ways, not just in terms of my English skills, but also in my confidence and outlook on language learning. When I first arrived, I was unsure of my abilities, worried that I wouldn't be able to communicate well in a city where everyone spoke English. But now, I felt much more confident. I could hold conversations, understand different accents, and express myself in ways I never thought possible. One of the most rewarding things about my experience was seeing how much I had improved. I remembered the first few days when I could barely understand the subway announcements, or when I would freeze up at the thought of speaking to someone in English. Now, I could speak with strangers without hesitation, understand most conversations, and even enjoy watching TV shows in English without subtitles. I had gained more than just language skills. I had gained the confidence to use English in real-world situations. Throughout my time in New York, I learned that learning English is not just about studying grammar rules or memorizing vocabulary. It's about being immersed in the language and using it in everyday life. The more I used English, the more comfortable I became. Whether it was ordering food at a restaurant, asking for directions, or chatting with a friend, every conversation helped me improve. I also learned that it's okay to make mistakes along the way. Mistakes are a natural part of the learning process, and every mistake helped me grow as a language learner. I also realized that learning English is a continuous process. Even though I had made great progress, there was still much more to learn. New York had taught me that language is a living thing. It evolves, and so does the way we use it. There are always new words, new expressions, and new ways of speaking to discover. I knew that my journey with English didn't end when I left the city. In fact, it was just the beginning. I was excited to continue learning, practicing, and improving my skills. One of the most valuable lessons I took away from my time in New York was the importance of staying curious. I became more curious about the language and the world around me. I started to pay attention to how people used English in different contexts, from casual conversations to formal speeches. I began to understand that English, like any language, is a tool for connection, and the more I learned, the more I could connect with others. In the end, my experience in New York was not just about learning a language. It was about connecting with people, learning about different cultures, and growing as an individual. English had opened many doors for me, and I knew that it would continue to help me in my life and future travels. My time in New York had taught me that language learning is a journey, not a destination. And though I had made great strides in my English, I knew that the journey would continue for the rest of my life.